contributors, and we'd also like to hear quite a lot from you. So we will be opening it up to ideas and opportunities that you might have around AI. So this, I think, is about our 9th meetup. Yeah. This is Martin. So Martin was the original, I guess, the founder of Brighton AI. Co-founder, yes. And we've got a few, we'll do some intros actually to the other Brighton AI folks. But we are now as a community well over 1,000 people, I think 1,067 of the last count. Hello to all our regulars. I can see some familiar faces. And who hasn't been to one before? Have we got some newbies? Wonderful. Oh, that's great. We've got lots of new people. Fabulous, great. So you all have, as well as listening to some great opinions and perspectives, you're going to have lots of time afterwards to network and meet people. The whole point around Brighton AI and networks like this, we'll be hearing a lot about that, is to draw some connective tissue between all the ideas and the people and the organisations that are in this amazing city. And that really is the theme for this evening. So with that, shall we look at our agenda? Let's see if the clicker works. This is always the challenge, isn't it? Point. Oh. That's it. We did say we could just do this, where you just do the clicker all night. That would be a bit weird. Excellent. So we've got a wonderful panel. We'll be introducing them all to you a bit later. But the topic for this evening is this: how do we build an AI-centric city for good? So you can start pondering that. And we've got two specific questions for you guys coming up. Oh, here we go. I knew that would be the case. Okay, so the agenda, we'll run through this really quickly. We're going to do a quick intro to Brighton AI, like what is it? What are you getting involved in if you are new? We've got Silicon Brighton. Actually, I think Silicon Brighton, although they're very important, you're going to cover that, Grace, aren't you, in your piece? Then we're going to talk a little bit about Brighton and beyond. So Martin and I are going to share some perspectives, having sort of been in this community for, is it a year now? It is, it's definitely coming up to a year. And then we're going to hear from our, I'm going to say panelists, but our contributors who've all got a really interesting backgrounds and different perspectives and lots of different types of organisation. And then we're going to have a little bit of time to open the mic to you and to share your ideas and opportunities. And then there's networking. Does that all sound okay? Yes. Excellent. Good stuff. Good, because otherwise we're probably all in the wrong place. Yeah. Oh, towards the cupboard. Yeah, that's no secret. All right, so Brighton AI. What is it? So to Martin's point, there are 6 co-organisers of Brighton AI. Who have we got here? All at the back. So we've got Matt at the back, and we've got Mary, and we've got Bissy. So Graham could not make it tonight. No, Graham can't make it tonight. So we're broadly organised into 3 themes. So we've got innovation and commercialisation. Wave again, Mary. So that is all about what is going on in the sphere of AI, how is the technology developing, and most importantly, how can we apply it and hopefully make money out of it. Then we've got ethics and governance. So BC at the back and Matt. And that's going to be the next theme. So please come along to our next one, which will be at Sussex University. And these guys are looking at ethics and governance, which is obviously a massively important theme, and have actually developed some guidelines and some approaches that we've shared on the website that are very, very applicable and useful. And then there's Brighton and Beyond. And the theme really for Brighton and Beyond was really about it's great that we've got networks and we've got meetups, but how could we actually activate this community for social impact and economic impact in our region? So that's the conversation that we would like to have with you this evening. Anything to add on that? No? Okay. To the cupboard. All right, the people in this row are responsible for going in the cupboard. Excellent. So, it wouldn't be a meetup without a QR code, so that's where you can find us. So there's a website, it's got all the materials, including the frameworks that Matt and BC have been collaborating on. So that's where we are. We would love more people to get involved. So if you're interested in speaking, in sharing some content, or if you'd like to help volunteer, organise these events, please do get in touch. Excellent. So now we'd like to say a big thank you to the organisations that have been supporting this evening. So Chaperone, which is Martin's company. We've got Silicon Brighton, who you'll be hearing from later. And we've also got PlusX. So I'm going to hand over to Kerry.
Oh, hello. I recognise some of the faces in here this evening too. So I'm very sorry you get subjected to my... Actually, no, I think you're lucky to get subjected to my health and safety again. It's a highlight of the evening, people have been telling me. For those of you who've never been here before, welcome to PlusX Innovation. We're an innovation hub that help bold thinkers do bold work. And we do this with access to our unique facilities, like our prototyping workshop or our podcast suite. We also do it with collaboration within our community. So we have a really thriving and diverse community that we think the magic happens when they come together. And we also offer programmatic support. So very excitingly, about 2 weeks ago now, we launched Stage 1. It's an 8-week program designed to help businesses that have a great idea, but they just don't know quite what to do with it. So hopefully at the end of those 8 weeks, we'll have some really exciting and viable businesses going into Brighton and beyond. See what I did there? In terms of coming here tonight, I do have an exciting opportunity for you. We have a competition running and it's actually closing very soon. So you're very lucky you just got in there. Ooh. In fact, where's Grace? So Grace, you always give me so you could win an event in this space for the value of up to £1,000. So if there's something you've always wanted to put on, but maybe budget was the thing that was stopping you, definitely get on that QR code. And this is what we call a win-win, because anyone who enters also gets a free co-working day in our space. So you can't lose. On to the health and safety. We are so good at organising events. We have not scheduled a fire alarm test during the middle of this one. So if you do hear the fire alarm, it means we will be evacuating the space. And air hose style, the nearest evacuations are found along this windowed wall here and in the cafe entrance at the back there. Our assembly point is the B&Q car park, where we will all make sure that everything's safe before you bring it back in. And I don't think it's going to pop up tonight, Rose, is it? But if you do find yourself injured or see somebody else who's injured, we are first aid trained and mental health first aid trained. So if you need us, we're here to support you. But with that said, I hope you have a lovely evening. Thank you so much.
Thank you. She's so good at that. I felt like I should be doing the air stewardess sort of emergency exit piece. We'll do that next time. Oh, yeah, okay. And you can't leave. I'm just going to forget where the clicker... Right, you guys. Okay, that's it. Lovely. So what we were going to do first was just some reflections, actually, on our must-be-soon first birthday. Actually, we haven't organised a party or anything. That's true. Oh, that's true. Okay, all right. The clicker. Oh, we've done that bit. Oh, we should have had that for Carrie. Don't tell her. Okay. Excellent. Martin, you've got one. We can be like a boy band now, right?
Yeah, good.
Yeah. Yeah.
How was it for you this first year?
Well, I'd love you just to... a lot of people here won't have heard the story behind why or how you decided to pull this together. And I get that people have got involved since, but what was it that sort of sparked the idea?
Yeah, good question. I wasn't expecting that. So I have been part of Silicon Brighton for a while, actually since lockdown. I was invited to a kind of a leaders group where business owners meet up once a month online to talk about things. And it was lockdown, and every month we talk about people problems, staff problems, recruitment, retention, working from home, all those things. But increasingly becoming aware of AI and starting to use it myself, and then slowly in our business, and being a kind of a tech person and innovating in tech a lot, it was blooming obvious that this was a thing that we should take notice of and try and embed better into our work practices. And so I said to Steve, Rackley and Grace, actually, what are we doing about AI and AI meetups and things like that? And they said, well, go on then. So there's a few of us said at the time, Bissy, I know at the same time, Claire Bown as well, said, okay, let's do a meetup. Then we said, what does a meetup mean? What do we need to do? So we've been learning quite a lot on the fly, but the idea was to kind of take a group of organisers and arrange events in these 3 streams. The Brighton and Beyond thing, and this is, I am frustrated by this, but I'm actually permanently frustrated if you get to know me, because I'm impatient. The idea was, let's just do some AI then. Let's just do some AI in the city. That shouldn't be too difficult. Let's go and talk to the council and get them engaged, and let's do some AI. My word, I didn't quite realise that it's not about technology, it's about the people and engaging people around a thing and getting everybody to do that alongside their day job. So, so the idea, I think, is still good. The journey's been longer than I expected, but it's starting to take shape, I think, and we'll touch on that a little bit today.
Yeah. So I think for me, I was attending one of these events about a year ago. And for me, it was part of sort of exploring Brighton and the Brighton scene, because I'd spent about 14 years on that train to London daily until the pandemic. And so when that offer that I just made to you guys, which is, you know, do you want to get involved? I put my hand up and did get involved. And I think what I found in the city is it has opened so many doors, this concept of Brighton AI and the network that is behind it. There's so much interest from everyone, from people in sort of arts and culture through to technology, to startups, to skills. So everyone wants to be part of something, and it's really just about how we frame what that thing is. I think, like you, my observation is it's so much harder because it's about getting humans to collaborate and organisations to collaborate. And we've had lots of, I'd have liked to have seen more around how some of the big gnarly topics in our city, how we could have amassed the network around that and leverage some of the skills that we've got in the city to solve some of the big city problems. I look at other cities that have got tech clusters, because we've talked a lot about tech clusters, and what you see is they've got well-paid groups of people with actual jobs building those. And what we've got in Brighton is a lot of people who are trying to do that as well as run businesses and run full-time jobs. So I think the theme that I'm interested in hearing about tonight is what's really key in all the conversations we've had is that in order to unlock funding and investment, we need collaborations between lots of different types of organisations. And it feels like communities like this it has got the foundations for those sorts of collaborations, and it's key to bringing investment in through organisations like Innovate UK. And Stuart will be talking a little bit about how that happens and the mechanics of that in a bit. Do you want to talk a little bit then about, because that went a bit negative, didn't it? I didn't mean it to be. I think there's lots of opportunities, but it's hard, I think, is probably the message. But you have been looking at specifically at projects and sort of tangible things that could move forward. So it'd be great to hear a little bit about that.
Yeah, just to echo Rose's point, the exciting bit is there is momentum, there is interest, it's the topic of the decade, isn't it? That everyone can get behind. They're just either focused on their own piece of it, or we can't quite see the way through to bring things together. My little epiphany was quite obvious, was, well, why don't we just bolt on something that we're already doing and try and connect that or integrate that into a wider AI project? So we're working at a national level. We've built, so Chaperone is a software platform that we have. It's our product. It does a number of things, but it can become, and we're looking to deploy what we're calling a destination app or a city app. It's a tourism platform. We're looking at doing that nationally through organisations we're collaborating with, and actually internationally in a couple of other large economies. So that's all exciting, and we've taken the initiative to say we are going to do this. We want to do it in Brighton. We so desperately want to do it in Brighton. We need a few things to line up so we can do it meaningfully in the city. But it's so well connected, it feels like the right place to do it. That will drive a whole number of things without AI. What we want to do, if you don't mind clicking for me, point to the cupboard, I think that's what we need to do. Thanks, Rose. Is
Whole
also,
caller.
Pow. It's also build an AI system into it. So from a tourism platform, we want to guide people around the place and give them the right content at the right time. Obviously, AI can help with that immensely. The essence of this is we want to understand the city. We want to build effectively a digital twin of the city, not one of those 3D digital twins, that might be part of it, but a machine that understands how the city works. From a tourism point of view, tourism or transportation probably, that's our domain, that's our dominion. Our motivation to do that is our commercial interest. We'll partner up, we'll collaborate, we'll share, absolutely. But there's a much bigger piece to this, which is the part that's harder, but I think this is the prize that we are aiming for together, is how do we build systems that understand how a city works. From a tourism point of view, how do people work in that city and vice versa? That's, again, our world. But what else could we do in the city? This diagram, there's lots of bits to it. It's a kind of a work in progress diagram. There's some company names on there. Those companies are either people that are interested and engaged, or people we're about to have meetings with. I've got a meeting with the Footy Club in a week's time or so to bring them into the idea, the concept. The diagram, though, is divided into two big groups, innovation, skills and growth, and community health and prosperity, and then 10, I think, different sectors within that. This diagram is mapped very closely to the economic plan that Brighton and Hove County Council have developed. The terminology, the roles and responsibilities is represented here. So it's a reasonably comprehensive diagram at the top level of the city functions and all the bits and pieces of it. Our goal, so we want to drive, from a business point of view, the out-of-home tourism piece. We'll be doing that as best we can of our own accord. But what else can we do together in building a machine, an AI machine of the city that activates and optimizes and adds efficiency, scale, puts us on the map on a national level and international level? That's the ambition. That's why it's taken a year to get this far. But the conversation today is not about the technology. I think that's kind of the easy bit. We kind of know how to do the technology, probably. The technology will help us solve the technology too, for the first time ever. It's the people piece. It's us. How do we optimize around this in our place, our location? So I think that's kind of the diagram that starts to shape the conversation. And we've got some great panelists to dig into that and share their experiences and thoughts on this gnarly topic.
That's my favorite word at the moment, gnarly. And these were the two questions that we really wanted to put to you guys. The first one is, how do we foster this critical collaboration within our city? And then the second one is, what impact do you think that AI could have at a city level? What important challenges or opportunities could it speak to? So hopefully, as you hear the next few speakers talk, that might spark some ideas, and we'd love to hang the mic to you afterwards. All good? Okay, awesome. Right. So with that, we can move on to some of our guests this evening. So the first guest we've got is Kath. There you go. Katherine Church. So, yes, do you want to take the blue one?
Hello.
Right. Hang on.
Cupboard. Are you going to do that for me?
I'm going to do that.
Oh, you're going to do
Well,
that for me.
in
Thanks.
theory I am, but so there you go. So Kat,
Fantastic.
let's
Amazing, amazing, amazing. So the topic that I was asked to come and talk about today was innovation in the context of corporates. And by way of background, I've been working in corporate innovation in my entire career. And this being an AI meetup, I immediately went to Chat GPT Enterprise and asked it to help me out with some thinking. But my definition of when AI is going to become sentient and autonomous is when it can make me laugh. So I asked a large language model to give me a joke about corporate innovation, and this is what it came up with. Corporate innovation is like a toddler with an iPad. Lots of noise, lots of excitement, but nobody really knows what they're doing. Which, to be honest, I don't think is a bad joke for an LLM. And I think it reflects quite well my experience of corporate innovation. So maybe I've just jumped into Team Sam Altman, and within X number of generations, we might have machines that are making some decisions for us. But so if we move on then, thinking about, in my experience, why corporates have innovation labs and hubs. And again, all of the humor is courtesy of Chat GPT Enterprise. But this happens so often. So you'll get an away day, management away day, big strategy day, big day at which we look at the environment that we're operating in. And all of the leaders are sitting around being utterly terrified of the whippersnappers that are coming up behind them that are eating their lunch. And there's a bit of a corporate midlife crisis. What on earth are we going to do about this? Someone is eating our breakfast and we need to do something about it. And that is normally led by someone with the cool dad syndrome. So someone who's been in tech for a while, has had all of these amazing ideas, is on the ascendant, and their influence is being felt. So what do they suggest? A corporate innovation hub or an innovation lab. And this is frankly the place where the wild ideas are tamed. And if they succeed, then they're monetized and corporatized. And if they fail, when they fail, and they fail quite often, and they fail quietly. So put them in a corner, let the tech bros play in their playpen. And if something good comes out of it, then we'll build on it. And I think for me, that really exemplifies why so many corporate innovation hubs tend to fail because they are built as silos. They're built away from corporate goals. They are, when they do succeed, they're then smothered in the corporate environment. And I thought it'd be helpful to share some examples of that. So I've chosen 3 examples here, and this is one of my favorites. And actually, in doing an MBA, this is probably one of the use cases around innovation that you'll study. So the Predix platform, so this is GE reinventing itself as a digital innovator and trying to do innovation at scale. So 2013, in fact, they bring Eric Ries in, a guru, because we have to have a guru and we have to have new methodologies. And they embark on the development of this incredibly ambitious platform. So this was bringing together a whole ecosystem from beginning to end to create an Internet of Things platform, to create a whole set of replicatable modular technologies, which were frankly going to change the world. And in 2013, they thought they would get 20 billion from this platform, but they were also, in so doing, going to move the whole way in which they thought about tech development to a lean, agile methodology. Anyway, and by 2016, the whole project had been shelved completely at a cost to them of 7 billion, which back in 2013 was a lot of money, and today is still a lot of money. And some of the lessons for that is innovation that scales too fast. So actually trying to build something without having some really strong foundations to then bring that innovation back into the company. There was an absolutely epic clash of methodologies. So people who were used to working in a very waterfall, very ponderous way, building business cases, building investment cases, then scaling those very gradually, being put alongside a whole team of people who were moving super fast, who were failing super fast. And that just fundamentally didn't work. There was also a misalignment to the corporate goals. And because this part of GE had been siloed in another part of the organization with a completely different governance structure, then actually the successes that they were having, and there were some good things that came out of this, were not aligned to the corporate goals. So as soon as the times got tough, then it was really easy to cut this. And actually, the ambition of getting a $20 billion business from a standing start in 7 years back then was utterly overly ambitious. So that is one example: culture, silos, misalignment of methodologies, and a complete misalignment of culture. The second example, and I like this because it brings in alliteration, was that when you think that you can make three things starting with R work together, then of course this is going to drive revenue. And in the case of Coca-Cola, it didn't. And this is Coca-Cola, but I've seen the same thing in pharma. I've seen the same thing in manufacturing. So where, again, on an away day, the leadership decide that they need to innovate, but this time they're going to do it through an in-house incubator. So they reach out to the ecosystem, they bring in loads of cool kids who've got some brilliant ideas, and then essentially smother them in corporate processes. In the case of Coca-Cola, what they had is some real ambition. They brought 8 companies in. They invested about $1 million into each of those companies, and only one of them spun out into anything that was actually of any commercial value. They had their own cool dad, David Butler, who did some incredible work in that organization. But again, as soon as it didn't meet the corporate ambitions, and as soon as it wasn't having the VC 10 times returns, then that was quietly shelved. So my lesson there would be beware of alliterations. And my final one, and I will never get bored of talking about the epic fail that was Google Glass and its very small number of glass holes that bought it. As if it wasn't bad enough trying it in 2013, they had another go in 2019, and we're having another go now at creating glasses that can impinge on your privacy and turn our environment into an augmented reality environment. And I suppose after $1 billion, they should have known better, but they still don't. But the lessons there for me are about understanding your customer, really thinking about form and function. And I know the product analogy maybe doesn't translate quite so well to a city, but getting form and function right for a company like Google should be a really basic one. Privacy and security, I think even now where we're more and more willing to share our private data, and maybe slightly less concerned or more concerned, or that balance between what we share and what we're scared of is different from 10 years ago. I still think the mistakes are the same. And then price, who is going to pay for that? And I would say the same around all the Apple headsets at their extraordinary expensive prices. So 3 examples of failure, but I think there's some core themes there: is alignment to goals, having some common goals, having a goal that actually has a value and a meaning to people, aligning the methodology, and having some measurable outcomes, which I think are things we could take into how we think about developing innovation through technology in Brighton. And I suppose my final thing is when it works. So this is an AI image that took me a good 25 minutes on ChatGPT image creator. That's the time I had. So one of the environments that for me, Martin and I were having a conversation about this earlier, that has changed the most, apart from my mobile phone, has been airports. And I've been using Gatwick Airport for about 25 years, and it used to be awful. And you may think it still is, but I actually find it quite a pleasure now. And I used to have to leave 2.5 hours before my home in South London to get there, because there would be so many queues, because the plane would be delayed, because my luggage would get lost. And now actually I can do from my house in Seven Dials to being on the plane in an hour, if the trains work well, which is a different matter. And for me, that is a real example of when you align technology well within an ecosystem and you have a series of aligned objectives. And when you do that, for me now, I can turn up at the airport, I've checked in online, and yes, that is partly with the air companies themselves, but I can turn up online, the queues are well managed, the process of going through security is quite easy, I don't get lost anymore, the signage is most of the time correct, the airplane is quite often on time. So I think for me, that's an example of how in a constrained space, when you have some aligned objectives, and you have a really clear set of rules, in this case, regulations, around around how different organizations come together and collaborate, then I think you can actually make things a lot better. So rapid, very quick view of my view of innovation, and I'm looking forward to hearing from everyone else. Thank you.
Am I straight on?
You are. So welcome. This is Richard.
Hello.
So Richard, you're going to be talking to us about the building blocks for thriving cities,
I'll have a go.
and then pondering whether technology might be the one tool that we haven't properly exploited yet.
I'm going to provoke. I won't have any answers.
Now, do you want to own the clicker?
Would you mind clicking for me?
Okay,
You were so good at it.
give-
I will not do the cupboard.
Give me the subtle.
Yeah, we'll be in tune. We'll be good. Hello, everybody. I'm Richard. I'm not a technologist. I don't have a corporate background. So really my role here is maybe to give some context or some thinking around some of the really interesting ambition that Rose and Martin talked about earlier, which is sort of how can technology, how can AI solve some of the gnarly, knotty problems of a city or of a place. And that's really where I do have some interest. And two things I've spent the last sort of 25 years looking at is how to build thriving local economies, how places, cities, regions work and don't work, and all the different moving parts. And then how do the sort of working age population within those places also thrive, find opportunity, have social mobility, feel part of something. And that's my work across the UK, but I have a particular interest in Brighton, being my spiritual home for 30 years, if not always my actual home. And I'm going to talk a little bit in a minute about what I've learnt through a kind of strange project that I've done. But in terms of my kind of other work, cupboard, back one, lovely, thank you. Yeah, the privilege of my work is that I get to do all sorts of very kind of curious things and work cross-sector. So in terms of thriving places, I've designed festivals, I've worked with corporates like Ford on sort of social mobility tech projects, I've helped build boroughs of culture, I've worked on health programs and looked at knotty issues like modern slavery and how do you get the kind of the police working with small businesses, working with universities. And you learn a lot about where friction lies in terms of the sort of sharing of information and willingness to collaborate. And then in terms of workforces, I've worked again lots of different sectors. How do you create aspiration in the construction sector? How do you get more young women working in tech and engineering? And again, all of that comes down to so many different sort of forces working together. There never is one agent that's going to make that change happen. But in all that work, I've learned a lot about what makes a confident place, what makes a confident city. And really, I think if I'm going to reduce it, it comes down to 6 kind of pushes and pulleys, 6 inputs into the confident city machine in terms of the ability to make change. So you can play around with policy. and you can use sort of social engineering, and you can take a bit more here and put a bit more there, and try and find some sort of local legislative principles around which to work, and that has some benefits, but it takes a very long time, and politics is often the enemy of progress sometimes. Not certainly not in Brighton, no way. Planning, obviously the infrastructure, the physical environment, where things are put, where things are moved, governance and leadership, investment, research, which in this context is talking to people, listening to people, asking people, and looking at the data, qualitative and quantitative, and finally technology. So all of those others are probably fairly well understood when you're looking at local government, or you're looking at housing, or you're looking at the sort of infrastructure of a place. But I think the role of technology, which is rapidly increasing its sort of footprint and agency, is really not that understood at the moment. And I think Brighton AI is a very good example of where that thinking is moving to, and we'll come to that. Next slide, please. So when you're making decisions about a city or a place, and you've got finite resources, and that's even with private sector investment, that's even with populations growing, that's even with free ports, that's even with, you know, whatever a positive economic stimuli, you have to make some decisions around what you prioritize. You cannot do all things to all people all at once. So apologies to Maslow and his hierarchy of needs. I've sort of come up over the years from my learning of a sort of hierarchy of place, and the things that you need to sort out if a place is going to work for all of the different parts of it. So let's say that the goal is wealth, and I don't just mean money, I mean quality of life, I mean freedom of choice, I mean financial independence, I mean both private and community wealth in its broadest sense, but a place that feels like it's working and thriving, and everybody in it has access to the things that they need. But you don't have that unless you have a really confident sense of that place's identity and the culture within it, and the story that it's told, and of the tribes and of the communities and of the neighborhoods, and that it feels like a place where leisure is as important as just sort of living and surviving. But you can't have culture unless you have public services. You can't have that confidence unless things work, unless there are good, well-run schools, unless there are good, well-run health facilities, unless the bins are collected. But you can't have that unless you have the infrastructure to do it, the buildings in which those things happen, the roads working, the places not falling and tumbling down, investment in the actual spatiogeography. But you have none of that unless people are working, and people are paying taxes, and that businesses are able to set up and grow and expand in that place because they have access to the talent that then makes those people want to stay and live there. And you don't have any of that if you don't have a working age population that is well, that is not too young, not too old to work, and is able to get out of bed in the morning and take part in that sort of local ecosystem. And you don't have those people if there's nowhere to live. And in a city like Brighton and Hove, we have lots of those things working quite well, some of those things working very well, but some of them not working very well at all. And the thing is, how cities work is you're sort of jumping around quite a lot of the time. It's very difficult to get a kind of cohesive strategy to work from the bottom upwards. But I wonder if technology has a role in helping us think about that a little bit differently. So I did a project that some of you will have been aware of, I think some of you were involved in, called the Brighton Paradox. It took about 2.5 years. I interviewed nearly 100 people, and I looked at all of those things. I looked at those different things on that hierarchy. I looked at the different inputs, policy, leadership, investment, and because I was curious as to why Brighton existed in such a paradox, one of the greatest cities on earth, a creative, smart, ambitious, safe city that has such a big problem with housing, is in the 10 least equal cities in the country, has the the third slowest growing population. How is that possible? Everybody wants to be here, but clearly everybody also wants to leave in equal numbers. Then that's a problem. And housing not just being available, but it's the houses are rising in price faster here than even in London, considerably faster than in London. So how can we square that circle? And I wanted to find that out, and that's why I decided that a sort of an audio documentary that was sort of led by curiosity would be the way to do it. And so in the end, at 14 episodes, 10 season 1, 4 season 2, it's just concluded in the last couple of weeks. I discovered an awful lot of things about this city and about the inherent lack of confidence in so many things, a sort of self-limiting belief mixed with huge capacity to do, to be, and a great sort of hope, but not always necessarily finding that point in the middle. And so I got me thinking, you know, if we have the ability to use policy, planning, research, investment, and governance to make the city better, you know, those things there are some reasons why some of those things work a bit slower, but there's no reason why they should work any different to any other city. But you'll have to listen to the podcast as to why perhaps some of those things are a little bit slower. But it's this one about technology that I couldn't quite get away from. This is one of the most tech-savvy cities in the country. You have people working in this city with access to cutting-edge tech. You have places like this in which cutting-edge tech can happen. You have 2 universities that are known for the way that they're using technology. So why are so many people in the city not thinking about tech as a solution? Until I came across Rose and Martin from Brighton AI, and I thought, okay, they are. Next slide, please. And so thematically, some of the things that were coming through in my conversations about why Brighton hits a ceiling so often in terms of economic development, in terms of thriving, these themes came up a lot. A lack of current cross-city data. Actually, there's so many different moving parts of the city. It's a small city, but actually there's so many different, quite important institutions and pillars and ideas, but the sharing of it there's a lot of friction there. There's misaligned skills and capabilities. It might be one of the most highly educated cities in the country, certainly 3rd after Oxford and Cambridge, but people with PhDs are working in coffee shops. There's something not happening there in terms of the best use of those skills. There's ineffective prioritization. There's lots of investment and money putting into things that aren't working. There's lots of impatience, but there's not necessarily lots of urgency to change things. Unclear leadership, weak case for investment, lots of missed opportunities. There's lack of confidence and groupthink. You know, there's lots of people that gather together, not necessarily with diversity of thought. So coming back to this idea of technology, it can't solve all of those things because, as Martin said, this is a people problem. But I wonder if AI, if the use of data in different ways could certainly make some of these things an awful lot more accessible. They could certainly disrupt some of the current challenges that we have around that, particularly around the use of data. Martin's City app is a very good idea in that direction. In terms of skills and capabilities, matching the right people to the right jobs, to the right investment, to the right, you know, the kind of the way that data can be used, and prioritization, using data in order to be able to make decisions a lot better. And I think Brighton could be an absolute pioneer in how that is implemented. And I'll be very interested to hear what you think later on. Thank you.
Okay, thank you so much. Next up, we have Stuart. Stuart is going to chat to us about another piece of the jigsaw puzzle with the university's collaboration and investment. So over to you. Would you like to own your clicker, or do you want to?
I've only got 2, so
Okay, it's quite low risk.
One click. Yeah, mine's more of just a prompt list. But first, thanks to Rose and Grace and the whole gang for having me along. So yeah, Rose spoke to me about collaborations and how do we make collaborations work in the city, and where the university can come into that. Sanaz is here. So Sanaz runs our user-centered design center at the university, where they use AI and human-centered approaches to tackle challenges. So try and catch Sanaz later on if you can. But what I really want to talk about a bit more was Rose and I were talking about funding and how you get funding and what funders are looking for. So I just jotted, this is more just prompts for me, was I jotted down some things that probably matter to funders. First one was a strategy. I looked at this in terms of what would help the group and the cluster, but also what might be useful for you guys as individual businesses as well, looking for support. And one of the key things I always think is, whether you're a group or a cluster or a business, it's why does this funding support your strategy? What's the vision? What is this part of the picture for? So it's not about, this is a great idea to do today, but it's like, this fits in our story. We've started here. We want to get there. We need some funding and support right now to get to that next step. So it's the idea of, like, as a business or a group, do you have a strategy that goes 3 years, 5 years, 10 years? Because if you don't, you probably need at least sort of like a 3-year one, and then you can start to tell a convincing story as to how that funding might be relevant to you. One of the phrases I always I like that I've read is a mountain versus a molehill. So often you get like a mountain of hype around an idea. So a lot of like, this is going to be amazing, this is brilliant, it's obvious, it's brilliant. The person who's funding it might not have all the context or the background. So you want that, ideally not a molehill of evidence around that idea. You want to back up we want to do this development, we want to do this innovation because we've seen that there could be growth in this sector. Back it up with some stats and figures. I was talking to Grace before about how they might do some advocacy work for the tech sector in Brighton and Hove. And I said, and it's great to hear I think she's going to come on and talk about a survey and things, is getting that evidence of, okay, how many businesses are in the Silicon Brighton umbrella? Like, how many does that represent? How many employees? What's the turnover? Because as soon as you start to do that stuff, then you can just, Martin was talking about the challenges of talking to the council and stuff. If you just hit them with that, it's like, there's the stats, there's the stuff. We represent X thousand of people, X million pounds. Suddenly they can't, it's not hearsay, it's not hype, it's just, here's the facts, and they can get behind that, and here's where we want to get to. Again, inspiration versus perspiration. So you have like good idea, but especially when you're going for funding, it's a lot of work. And again, this loops back to the idea of strategy. Is it's got to matter to you, because getting funding from Innovate UK or a lot of bodies requires quite a lot of work on the application, and then actually delivering it. You've got to do reports, you've got to be accountable. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but it has to matter to your strategy. It's about getting you to where you need to be in your journey. That's like, it's not just like funding for a great idea at the end. It's like, this is part of the journey, and by doing this, we get there. You can share these, right? Because there's some links and stuff in there. Yeah, cool. So in terms of Innovate UK, your home or your sector, but I always think like AI is like enabling technology, people say to me. So it's like, they do have a sector for robotics and AI. They do have a section that they fund robotics and AI. But from what I've seen in the landscape, AI is popping up like everywhere else as well. So in health, agriculture, all kinds of schemes it's popping up. So if you were to go to the Innovate UK website, sign up for the newsletter for kind of everything, would be my suggestion, or pick the sectors. It's always tricky doing this kind of talk because I have no idea what areas you guys are all working in. So some of you might be working in health, some of you might be working in manufacturing, engineering, whatever. So it's tricky to sort of do one to many on this. But go and look, that link there will take you to the Innovate UK home. Go there, like, check out what bits you're interested in, sign up for the newsletters. They don't like spam the hell out of you, and there might be certain bits where you go, actually, yeah, we could lend some support to that. The university can fit in, or universities can fit in that you don't need a university to apply for Innovate UK. You can go for Innovate, most of the time you can go for Innovate UK funding either as yourself or in a little consortium. You don't necessarily have to be partnered up with the university. Where universities come in is if you have like a specific R&D need that they have the expertise for, that you don't have in your organization or your consortium, that's where the university can often help. Often the way I describe part of my job is, never mind the sort of Innovate UK, but it's just if you guys have a challenge and you don't have that expertise within your organization, we can be your R&D department for a bit, for a spell, to like help solve that challenge. And that's kind of how it can work, but you can go to Innovate UK. I don't know, I could be preaching to the choir here. You might all already know this. I don't know how many of you have already had Innovate funding, but yeah, you don't have to partner with a university, but if the fit's right and we have the expertise you need, or a university has the expertise you need, you can go in there, and it won't cost you guys any money because the funding comes separately to the university through Innovate to do that activity. You won't get funded at, well, they do some programs that are 100% funded, but most of the time there is some sort of match funding requirement from everybody involved. On the region, on the more like as a group bit, I wrote some acronyms. I wrote MCAs, LGPs. So we've been in this like flux situation for the last few months because of change of government and everything kind of went on pause. And from what it looks like, the way funding's going to come into regions is through what they're calling like multi-combined authorities. So it's not like the council, it's multiple councils coming together as a gang, as a group, as a multi-combined authority. And then they get what's called, they can apply for an LGP, acronyms everywhere and this stuff, but like local growth plan. And they can get funding that way to deliver against whatever their strategy or what they're pitching for, to grow economic development in their region. And then there's talk of a new industrial strategy coming probably after the autumn statement. So what I would say is, as a group, at the sort of group level, if you work with Silicon Brighton or Brighton AI, the idea of like using those guys as like the advocates for you, because it's really hard for, whether that's a multi-combined authority or one local council or whatever, they cannot come and meet all of you. They're like the likelihood of them doing that and then compile all of that and go. Whereas if you work with these guys who are amazing advocates for whatever you're doing in AI, give them the evidence. So if they can go and talk to the local authorities saying, we represent 10,000 companies, the turnover's X million, that makes it so much easier for the local authorities who, as Richard was sort of pointing out, have got quite a lot of things to do. So if you can give them the sort of stuff on a plate, they can go, sweet, we can get behind this. This is our strategy. This is the way we can grow and develop this. We can get behind it. And then I put a couple of Nesta links that might be really handy. So if you're thinking, okay, how do I build a strategy around this? How do I develop it? How do I talk about the change? I haven't had much to do with I haven't really used the problem definition one. I kind of came across it because I was looking, but I have used the theory of change one, and it was like linked through. So the idea of, when you're talking to a funder, Innovate UK say, you tell them the story. It's not just like, this project will be great. It's like, we came here, this is what we've done, and then this bit will get us to here. And that's a really helpful tool for doing that. It's just like an A4 paper, but it helps you think through like, okay, end point, start point, what are the steps we need to do, and how are we going to change that? How are we going to do that innovation within the business? So that's a really useful tool if you're thinking about applying for funding. Click. And then just millions of links. Oh my God. Matt and Rose talked a lot about how ethics and governance around AI was something they were passionate about. And they have that group within Brighton AI looking at it. So I happened to stumble across, when I was looking up stuff, that there is a AI standards hub that's starting to collate case studies. I can see nods that you might have come across it. That's probably something that you guys could engage with. The these were a couple of funding calls because they asked me to talk about funding. So here's a couple of funding calls. They do close next week. So whether or not you want to look at them or not, but it's just to say there are funding calls. One tip I wanted to say about funding, especially from Innovate, is watch the webinar or like go to the webinar because they do really debunk it. It's really painful, but they do really tell you what they're looking for, and it saves you like so much time in doing an application that might not fit the scope. If it's like 45 minutes, an hour out of your time to find out, okay, what's this actually about? I'm interested, what's it about? It's definitely worth investing that time rather than spending hours and hours and hours doing an application that isn't going to sit with them. There's 3 links of how you can work with the university. So we do professional development. I don't need to read it to you. Collaborative research and innovation is mainly my bit. That's what I get involved in more, is like collaborating with businesses to help them like achieve their innovation goals. That's the email connect. But what I would say around the collaborative research bit, yeah, we want to hear what your challenge is and if it's quite like meaty and where you need our input. But also we do go for funding for our own research projects, and we won't get that funding unless it's like relevant to wider industry. So we're often looking for people to come in, advise, be part of advisory and steering groups that we're doing. So we'd always welcome people just wanting to engage with us. Yeah, and like I say, we've got the user-centered design lab that's Sanaz that I've just pointed out and waved at, but if you can grab her if you want to talk about user-centered design for AI applications, get her in the network. But otherwise, that's the email, or just grab me. I didn't want to just go like the university can do X, Y, Z. I wanted to try and give you some tools that I hope are useful if you're thinking of going for funding. The main one I think would probably the takeaway is it's quite a lot of work and it's great, but so you've really got to make sure it matters to where it's getting you to, because often there's this like, oh, we need funding, we want to get funding, we want to fund, and it's like, but for what and where's it going to get you? Because once you've like targeted that, you can tell a really convincing story to the funder, but you can also, it's worth your investment of time and effort in getting that funding. And that's it.
Thank you so much. Just leave it on there. Thank you. And maybe, Stuart, we could ask for your assistance in just keeping track of some of those opportunities as they come out. Cheeky ask. Next, we've got Maria, who's joining us from Sussex Innovation, who's going to share some information on some research that they did on technology subsectors and the opportunities for Sussex. Over to you. There you go.
How I feel more powerful. Hi, everyone. So thank you very much for this invitation. My name is Maria, and I'm so happy to be here. And let me tell you why, because this is so aligned with internal discussions that we've been having around tech, but also many things that are happening in this group. And so happy to see that we are quite aligned with many of my colleagues and what they're presenting today. So the question is, how can we build an AI-centric city? And that's very challenging. So what we did at Sussex Innovation, and that's the exercise that I want to share with you guys today, is that we kind of took a step back and asked ourselves, which is the sector or the subsector in the tech world that truly identifies Sussex? Which is that part of the tech world that resonates with Brighton and Sussex? What makes this region unique is actually AI. So this was pretty much the question that we had in our mind. And this research was not a commissioned study or a formal research. This has been pretty much the work that we have done in the previous 10 months or the last year, driven by our team's desire to understand and to recognize the technological and entrepreneurial identity of Brighton and Sussex. So we collected a bunch of information from primary sources, which are pretty much many of you here, conversations, events like this one. But a lot of secondary reports and information that is already out there. So let me give you like a summary of what we did. We collected information of all the spin-outs and the spin-offs from Brighton, Sussex, and Chichester, all the knowledge transfer exercises and partnerships created by these universities. We also tried to map all the funding coming particularly from Innovate UK and UKRI, which sectors have been prioritized, which sectors are gaining traction, not only from a research perspective, but also that involves collaboration with the industry, which is the priority of programs like Bridge AI. We also explore tech communities and groups like this one that have been working organically, and they are doing amazing efforts, but I have to say, working quite in silos and isolated, like AI, like gaming, SEO, web developers. We also try to understand the economic landscape, because if you take a look on East and West Sussex, the economic backbone of our region is actually non-tech sectors. So if we take a look of what is happening from East to West, it's actually retail, tourism, vineyards, food and drink production, manufacturing, transport. So we wanted to understand if these sectors are already like integrating technological interventions. Are they using AI, or what are the challenges and the barriers and the incentives to actually do it? We also explore equity, investment, venture capital, angels outside London. So we've been reading a lot, as you can see. And pretty much the outcomes of this exercise reveal that the understanding and development of tech is quite varied. So there are different levels and assumptions and hypotheses. And we chose 3 key priority sectors to work from our organization. Please feel free to challenge, question, and critique what I'm about to say, because this information, I would say, is dynamic, is in movement. Is not the current picture, and it won't change. So more than happy to receive your insights. Keep reading so we can try to map out better these sectors. I hope you're ready. So the first one is actually AI. Oh my God, I'm not surprised. Yeah, thank God you invited me to this event. So it's actually AI because we saw that Brighton and Sussex are actually an amazing emerging hub for AI. But why? So the first reason I would say is that we have a strong academic presence from universities who are prioritizing AI into the centers of excellence and the research studies and priorities. But also we have a lot of AI companies that are at the forefront of the development of key sectors like defense, aerospace, cybersecurity, fintech. If we take a look on the previous, I think it was 2023, Innovate UK funding report, over 25% of the funding that is coming to the Southeast England is going to AI and digital transformation. But also, in the last couple of years, AI companies received like around 30 million or 40 million from venture capital. So I guess we all know the privilege and the transformational power of AI in many industries, from logistics to healthcare. I guess we all are pretty aware of the impact of AI in economic development, economic growth, job attraction, investment attraction. But so where is the problem if that all works pretty well? From our perspective, we think there are 2 challenges. The first one is that there is a gap between AI understanding and application from tech businesses and non-tech businesses. There is a gap there. Oh, and remember, the economic backbones of our region are non-tech sectors. That brings me something. And the second challenge that we think we have in this region is that we have many AI startups. Amazing. Not enough scale-ups. So how can we actually make that jump? Well, we only need three things: money, accelerators, and incubators. I'm going to drop those challenges here and let's see what happens, because we don't have the solutions yet. The second sector that we prioritize, and I think is quite related with what we've been spoken today, is sustainable tech and tech for good. So these come a lot from mindset and the theories of placemaking. So there is a common sense and a common feeling that Sussex has a commitment around sustainability. It seems that Sussex is this flourishing space for green innovation, especially, I would say, around clean energy, renewable energy, and climate change solutions. And there are plenty examples of it. Actually, Stuart, the University of Brighton, with the Clean Growth UK initiative, raised a lot of money for businesses on R&D since 2014. I don't know if you guys saw it, but a couple of weeks ago, this project called Growing Sussex 5G Innovation Region won like 3.8 million to develop sustainable food production with 5G technologies. Remember agriculture as part of our economic backbone. In Manor Royal in Crawley, there is a nice project called Re-Energize, which is a lovely community like this one, talking about reducing cost of energy, reducing carbon emissions, reducing waste. The South Downs National Park is working a lot with local tech firms, some of our members, to try to create more sustainable and responsible tourism. So there is something happening there. What we think is quite interesting about sustainable tech is that this is the part when there is a lovely intersection between public sector, private sector, not only startups, but corporates, community and academics, and non-for-profit or non-profit sector. But we think there are a couple of challenges again. The first one is that we are not very well aligned with the Sustainable Development Goals. So even if we think that we're doing a lot of progress, the world is telling us something different. It's not enough. We need to do more. What is that more? We don't know yet. So perhaps AI can solve it. And finally, the third sector that we prioritized was medtech and health tech. No, it wasn't creative industries. No, it was health and medtech. So we saw that this sector is one of the fastest growing, most promising sector in Sussex. Not only by research, innovation, funding, startups, but because it's needed. And Rita kind of confirmed it a moment ago. If we take a look on the health profile of Sussex, people are not happy. There are many challenges around access to health, around mental health. So we saw there is, I would say, a nice integration and solutions out there working on personalized medicine, health devices, patient care, a lot of solutions trying to optimize inefficiencies and healthcare facilities, a lot of money coming from UKRI, but we think there are two challenges. I'm going to tell you why we depict these two challenges. According to a publication from the, I think it was a Health Tech UK. Sorry, I forgot right now. I'll come back to you in a moment. I'm very smart after the event, so tomorrow when I'm taking a shower, so probably I'll tell you later. I think it was Health Tech UK, medtech sector in Sussex, the year-on-year growth is actually higher than the national average. And they predict that the job growth will be around 6 and 8%, which is a lot. If we have the right talent to meet the demand of those tech companies. If And I don't think we can meet that if. So we have two challenges. First one, we don't have the right talent in Sussex. People are not staying here, for sure. And even if universities are working around it, they are going somewhere else. So we need to solve that. And second one, and I would say this is a personal challenge for Sussex Innovation, is that we want to create an ecosystem when we want to prove and to create more future solutions, like a sandbox or a safe space when we can test and try and pilot solutions and then connect them smoothly to the supply chain of the NHS, because that's the bottleneck. There are amazing, fantastic solutions that are still trying to get and be a provider of the NHS. And that's a long way to go. So anyway, in a nutshell, collectively, what we think at Sussex Innovation is that the intersection of these sectors are quite lovely and will bring what we think is the combination of technology and innovation, high value job creation, economic development, and social and environmental impact. Please don't think we have forgotten the other sectors and the amazing efforts of other communities around marketing, around gaming, about creative sectors, about manufacturing. This was what we prioritize and what we think should be the things that we should work on at the moment to try to move forward. No matter the sector, what I really need to tell you guys is that the greater need is for integration and collaboration. What it means to integrate and collaborate, I don't know. Everyone keeps saying, let's collaborate, let's integrate. We need to really find out what is the model to connect each other. Is referrals, is signposting, is this when we get to know each other and at least we know what we're doing, and you're doing this, I'm doing this, let's share a coffee. So that's pretty much my invitation today. Come and visit us. Come and please, let's have a conversation about this. Let's continue this conversation. If you have critiques, questions, wishes, ideas, expectations about what I just shared today, please come, drop me a line, follow me on LinkedIn, Instagram, TikTok, whatever. Twitch, what is the next live session? I don't remember now. But more than happy to keep this construction with you guys. And thank you for having me tonight. I hope what I said makes sense to you. Thank you very much.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Maria. Last but not least, we've got Grace from Silicon Brighton. Many of you will be familiar with Silicon Brighton. They support many of these sorts of meetups across the city. And Grace will be taking us through how they do that, the importance of that support, and the future. Oh, there, you can do that one. Yeah.
Getting an assistant clicker. Hello, hello, yes. I'll trust you with a clicker in the cupboard. That's absolutely fine. First test. Slide, please. She's done it. Hi, everyone. A lot of you already know me, but just to introduce myself again, I'm Grace, and I'm the co-founder of Silicon Brighton. Just a show of hands first for anyone who's been to any of our events or have a vague idea of who we are and what we do. Great, that's good. So I'll do a whistle stop of who we are at the moment, and then I'll talk a little bit more about the what's next, because it's kind of the future that people are more interested in, right? And then I'll sort of finish with a kind of what's AI got to do with it, or what have we got to do with AI, in a little bit of a less bumbling way. So we are a not-for-profit. We've recently secured a not-for-profit status, and our mission is to put Brighton on the map as being a tech and digital hotspot. We don't want to compete with other cities. It's not about us saying we want to fight with Birmingham for funding, or we want to, you know, keep all the talent here and actually steal them away from Manchester, or, you know, that we're the biggest and the best. It's more about how can we create a blueprint for other people and other ecosystems and cities to follow. And then equally, how can we take the lessons from all of those other cities that are doing really good things and bring them to Brighton, so that actually when we're thinking about technology and innovation as a whole, as a concept, actually that on a universal scale gets bigger, gets better, gets more awareness, gets funding. It's that all ships rise with the tide. So that's kind of our mission and our purpose and why we exist. And these are all of the meetups that we support. There are 40 tech and digital communities, all of which happen around Brighton and Hove. They're all run by volunteers. Everyone donates their time, whether they're speaking or organising, and that allows the meetups to continue to be free for people to attend. They're all hybrid, they're all live streamed, and anyone from any level can attend. So whether people are just interested or running a tech team, curious, thinking about career switching, and that in turn makes the events as accessible as possible, but more importantly, it makes succeeding, growing, getting into the industry as accessible as possible as well. These are all of our supporters. So lots of businesses who essentially fund what we do and contribute to our running costs, again, to keep everything and all of our support free. And we also have a number of big ticket sponsors who are responsible also for contributing to what we do. What that actually means is that we've got 100 or so companies representing a workforce of about 12,000 people, all of which are active within the community, interested in investing in it, but also interested in understanding how to do more. We are always looking for more people. In the true spirit of collaboration, we couldn't do any of what we do without all of our volunteers, supporters, sponsors, etc. So that's a plea as well as a nod to our business model. But at the moment, we're very much kind of at a crossroads, really. We've built up over the last 5 years. We're actually, we're turning 5. We turned 5 last month. And we've had a number of quite sort of big ticket conversations in terms of essentially sort of stepping up. And I feel like probably Stuart and particularly Stuart and Maria were kind of my hype people in the background there, teeing me up very nicely to the kind of the what's next. You know, we've got all of this amazing sort of real estate, if you like, from the businesses and the people and the success stories. But what do we do with that? How do we kind of harness all of that and turn it into something amazing? And Stuart talked about that kind of tech cluster. It's about, and Maria actually talked about the jigsaw puzzle. There's a couple of kind of analogies there, but how do you kind of take it all and put it all together and present a real united front so that when people are kind of looking back in at Brighton and Hove, or people are looking to invest, they're not sitting there going, okay, well, do I speak to you or do I speak to you? And, you know, and as Stuart said, like, I can't get to all of the businesses, but I'm sure there are some there and I don't have the time to kind of work it out. What's that united front? What's that united message that we can present as Brighton and Hove back? And we're essentially positioning Silicon Brighton as an evolution, working more in collaboration with partners to put together the glue, if you like, and the united front, essentially. So that's kind of what's next in terms of the positioning piece. What does that mean in terms of what we actually do? Again, I had a really good chat with Stuart earlier, and you can tell he does funding because he had lots of amazing buzzwords and phrases for how we position ourselves. Tech advocacy came up, a vehicle for funding came up. Rose was talking about the connective tissue earlier. I think it's all of those things, it's any of those things, and it's probably more as well. But what we don't want to do essentially is preempt what the problems are for individual businesses and the city and solve a problem that maybe isn't the key problem. So actually, we're going to be putting out a community-wide survey to all of our supporters and sponsors, but equally every single person that attends all of our events, to collect all of that data around not only the size of the business, where you're at from a size perspective, from a growth perspective, how many people you employ, your annual turnover, what you see those projections to be in 3 to 5 years, but also what are the challenges? What do you see as being your challenge that maybe we could help to solve? Not immediately with money, but as you can tell by the collective efforts in the room here, there's a lot of skill, there's a lot of will, there is a lot of time and resource to put into this before the money comes. That community survey and that data is also a really rich bank of stuff that we can then present back externally in terms of actually what technology and what AI specifically means for the Brighton economy to put together a real good business case for destination marketing and for funding as well. And then in terms of AI, what's AI got to do with it all? I think first of all, what did we do about AI? What was our initial response? Some of our kind of core values are around taking action and responsiveness. And as Rose and Martin were talking earlier, it all kind of started with, well, this AI thing's a bit of a thing, isn't it? And it's going to be a thing for a while. So kind of what are we going to do about it? And Martin approached us and said, we need to do something. So we went back and said, go on and do something. And it's become, you know, a meetup now that is a year old. It's one of the fastest growing meetups as well. There are now over 1,000 members, and that is approaching its first birthday. And through these events, through the amazing stuff that happens, through people sharing ideas, and I know there's a bit in a moment to kind of share what your ideas are, what your solutions are, what projects you're working on, you get that amazing connectivity and collaboration that we can use to bring people together and solve problems and support projects. So I think the meetup and all the good stuff that's going to happen through the meetup, through bringing people together, is part of it. I think also going back to that mission around spotlighting Brighton and putting Brighton on the map, how do we do that? And actually, when you think about something that's new, that is an emerging tech, an emerging trend, actually it kind of puts us all back at square one, because everything that came before and all the tech that everyone's doing already, we're all kind of doing that. And now we're back at square one. So we're on a level playing field. It's kind of like the first quantum computer. You know, that can happen anywhere. And actually, we've got Universal Quantum here in Sussex, you know, building a quantum computer, and potentially Brighton could be the first ones to emerge with a quantum computer. It's the same with AI. And I don't even know necessarily what I mean in terms of the race to AI. Could it be about building the ethical framework? Could it be about the people that first develop an internationally renowned accreditation? It could be any of those things. Again, it could be all of them. It could be none of them and something different. But we've got a chance, and AI is giving us that level playing field. And I think the third thing is that it's the bridge. It puts technology as a bridge between us and them, but us and the other sectors, the rest of the world, the rest of the industries, the rest of the companies. You know, Maria was talking earlier and kind of saying, but what about the fact that hospitality is a massive employer? So where does tech sit next to that? Actually, AI is going to be the new thing that embeds and underpins everything else. So if we can use it to solve a bigger city problem, let's not sit there as a kind of us and them. You're either in tech or you're not in tech. Actually, AI is not tech or non-tech, it's everything. So let's create that bridge between AI and the rest of the industries and the city, be that connective tissue that can solve something really big. And I'm going to finish on Rose's word, gnarly. Thank you.
Lovely. Okay, so we don't want to keep you away from the beers and wines for too much longer. What we did want to do was just very quickly get our guests to come back, and we're just going to ask them one question, and then we're going to hand the mic over to you guys. So if you wouldn't mind coming up, taking a seat. That's it. Right. So we've just got one question for you, which is, what is it that you would like to see happen over the next year? So if you had a magic wand, what things do you think you'd love to see that would really move the agenda for Brighton and Hove, Sussex more broadly, and AI forward? We're handing out the magic wands.
So not copy me. Yeah, my one, it's really quick, but definitely not quick to solve, which would why it would take a wand and a year. But I'm going to go back to my last point. I want to see AI used to solve a really big ticket issue. We talk about, everything from the NHS and the systemic problems with that, through to healthcare, through to like house prices and train problems down here. I want to just take one of those big things and use AI to solve it. And I want Brighton and Hove to be the epicenter of solving a massive problem.
Lovely. Who are you going to pass the mic to?
Perhaps a more inclusive digital economy, because I don't know if you have guys seen the views of innovation. Every time that a new product, a new innovation is brought to the market, sometimes the inequalities of people that can actually access to the service of product is massive. While we create democratization of products, it takes longer and longer. So I don't want that if we create something, it only benefits a few part of the population or the community. If we think of inclusion as the foundational part of whatever we are creating, of this community, of our language, I think that's going to be a key milestone for the next year and for these conversations.
Thank you. I want Brighton to be more like Gatwick Airport. So for a city that is meant to be a digital cluster and an environmental city, there are more potholes, traffic jams, congestion, pollution. And actually, as soon as I step outside my house, I can't get 3G, never mind 4G.
Oh,
so actually, if we
let's
could
talk
use,
about that, yeah.
if we could use technology to make sure that when we dig the road up, we do that once. And then also when we flow the buses around, we don't do it such as the road collapses as it does regularly in front of my house, because nobody has thought about coordinating who's digging what up. Then I think that could be just a simple, a complicated but manageable problem to show how public and private sector could work together, use technology, use AI to predict and manage a really, really manageable problem that would stop me from nearly killing myself on my bicycle on a regular basis.
I think you got a few votes there.
I think for me, it's going back to that bit of the, it'd be really nice to see the tech cluster, and maybe AI could be the thing that, because it has that bridge or that enabling accessible route into all those other industries that you were talking about, in terms of we're not, where we're represented, and, an opportunity for, everyone to kind of come together, but also be a part of it, from the small businesses, the universities, the local authorities, to come together and actually, if AI is the thing that we can champion to deliver something that eventually sort of realizes the Tech Brighton vision that's always been right there, that would be really great to see. And I think, of all the, it's probably the most accessible, right? It's the one that can dip into, health and housing. It can touch everywhere, AI. So maybe it's the one that'll finally rally everyone around, I guess. Thanks.
Thank you.
So what is AI? I mean, it's huge amounts of data being used in very rapid ways to predict what comes next and in the most logical way. And I think we need to get that right first, in terms of, we talk about collaboration, we talk about these different, this city is full of extraordinary data that will contain the answers to so many of these things that we're talking about. Within the next year, it doesn't feel beyond the wit of man to find a safe and sort of ethical way to be able to bring some of that data together in ways that it hasn't happened before, whether it's taking some from economics, taking some from where people are going and how they move around the city, from education, from the surveys that Silicon Brighton, the data's collected, but it's just not brought together. Now, Stuart and I worked on a project together a few years ago in which Gatwick Airport did release huge amounts of its real-time proprietary data. So we're talking how quickly it turned around aeroplanes, how where people got off, where they went to, and it was reams and reams, terabytes of data that was made available to the University of Brighton, so that data scientists, technologists, artists could play with that data and interpret it to either find commercial responses to the sorts of things that Katherine's talking about, the use of an airport, or to visualize things and create extraordinary bits of kind of art that determine place and movement and community. COVID sort of got in the way of that being what it could be. But if Gatwick can share its data with a university and put it in the hands of those people, we've already know how to do that. Let's do more of that. And it feels like within a year, something really big could come out of that. Yeah, well, there's lots of ifs, but let's find a way.
Lovely. Martin, do you want one? You want a magic wand?
Wow. Yeah, it really is a vision that probably should be achievable, and that's the point. A small anecdote, I'll go through it quickly, but about 15 years ago, I worked with a guy called Bruce Laval. Bruce was he just retired, and we recruited him into a project that we're working on in Chicago to build an attraction. Bruce was head of Disney Parks and Resorts worldwide, everything that Disney did that you go to, he built and operated. He built cities and managed cities. Disneyland Paris, 12 million people go there each year. About 12 million people come here each year. I don't know the staff population of Disneyland Paris, probably not that different from Brighton. As a model, there are analogies. What Bruce understood was everything about his city, everything. He would win a bet, and we tried this on me. He would ask the guy at the chip selling stall by the fountain how many chips he sold at 6 o'clock in the afternoon, and from that he'd know how many cars were parked in car park A at 6 o'clock in the morning. He understood his machine so well. His job was a lot easier than managing a city as complex as ours, but my dream would be to understand our city that well. If we understand our city that well by collecting that data that otherwise is siloed by organizations that only understand their context of it, if we can bring that together with AI tools and understand our city, we can do many things. Tourism, many things, but we can touch on some of these things. We can operate far better than Gatwick Airport. We can operate far better than other cities, and we could use that as a beacon for how to make our city more efficient, more effective, make the money and resources go further, spread it around more fairly, all these things that should be possible with this technology. So that's kind of what I would like to see. There's definitely some challenges. There's some tech challenges, some data ones perhaps, but in many ways it's the people challenges. And I'm really excited to hear some of the great ideas here about what we could do to bring those together. So part of this conversation is to bring you into the conversations. We've spoke a lot, but the opportunity perhaps for you to not just here and now, but over time, come into these conversations and share what you can do to help realize these ideas.
Awesome. Thank you so much.
Have something.
I do, but people have heard enough from me tonight, I think. Shall I just quickly then? I would love VCs to be knocking our door down with FOMO, like really bad FOMO.
So they have money rather than FOMO.
Oh, yes. Money with money. Yeah, that's what I would love to see. So the way we're going to do this is, and if no one wants to speak, that's fine, and you're all just desperate to go and have another glass of wine, that's fine too. 60-second open mic. So if you've got an opportunity that you're working on, or something that you want other people to know about, this is your moment to shine in the spotlight. So if you want something you want to promote something, you need a contributor, or maybe you've got a skill that you would like to share or use or be paid for, then now's your opportunity. So have a think. If you just put your hand up, great, we've got one over there. So if you could keep it to 60 seconds, and then we'll just do about 5 minutes of this, Max.
Hi, Khalid Rafiq. I've got nothing to share or anything, nothing to promote. The thing is, I've made Brighton my home for the last 30 years. I've got 3 wonderful kids, which Brighton has given me. And I feel Brighton is a great community. It's a wonderful community. What we need to do, we need to take the different academia, local government, businesses, and get together and work as a community. We're still working in silos, and when we're working in silos, we're not reaching our goals completely. And we're always talking about funding. What can technology do? How are we going to get the funding? And all these problems. Why are we talking about problems? Once we've created our communities, once we're sharing our ideas, once we're sharing our experiences, telling our stories, once we've created that communities, these other things will come. The funding will come. How you use technology. I've been in technology for 30 years. Technology doesn't solve problem. Once we've got our ideas, AI is wonderful. It's nothing without our ideas. So we need to use technology and our ideas to solve the problem. But before that, let's create the communities. Let's get education, academia together. Let's get the business together. And best of all, let's get the local governments to listen to us.
Wonderful. That's a rally call, if I've ever heard one. All right, anyone on this side? Yeah.
Hi, everyone. I am in the very early stages of creating an end-to-end encrypted wearable. And this is called Luma Aura, very early. It's to help combat things like deep fakes and video impersonation, which I think will be very, much more prolific next year and onwards. I have a QR code if anyone wants to take the survey. Any feedback would be greatly appreciated. Thank
Excellent. You. Fund that person. Anyone else?
Hello, just a quick introduction. I'm Jake from Southeast Angels. We're a Brighton-based angel investment community. We invest in pre-seed founders, technology entrepreneurs. So if you are working on something, you want support and advice on the business, or you're actually raising now and want to approach us, feel free to do that via me. I'm on LinkedIn, and I'm fairly easy to find. We invest in pre-seed rounds around 100 to kind of 200k deals. And yeah, we'd love to back more Brighton-based entrepreneurs, and I'd kind of happily talk about that for hours and hours. I'd say about a third of our portfolio so far are kind of Brighton, or at least in our region, but we'd love to back more. So yeah, the more we can do to support technology entrepreneurs, and if they are looking to raise an equity round, send them to us. Cheers, like Southeast Angels. Cheers.
Money, 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 here, money.
Jake is the most popular man in Brighton.
Hello, I would like to introduce myself. This is my first time attending a meetup meeting or social. My name is Ahmed Al-Sawaf. I'm from Egypt. I'm studying computer science for AI at University of Sussex. Actually, one of the problems that I always face as an international student in general, I feel like reaching out to a community like this after spending here. This is my 3rd year, and this is maybe the first time hearing about an application. I feel that students are not reached enough about the ideas and about how AI is getting involved in other sectors. As I do really agree with, may I have your name? No, yeah. Sorry? Khali? Yeah, okay, sorry. As Khali said, that I always feel the problem is like how organizations are not getting connected with each others. I feel that I really heard really great ideas. The idea that of Chaperone, I had an same idea about it at the hackathon last year, and I really wanted to do something like that. But I felt that it took the hackathon was like for 24 hours and I didn't have enough time to work for it. But I feel at the end of the day that still organizations are not getting out with each other to communicate what are the what are the goals that they want to reach and how to collect actually I think the resources from the students. I feel that us as students in studying AI and everything really get a good education, really get a good everything, but we still don't know like how do we get our skills into the market and how we could benefit like the society or like the environment with our skills. I could have some ideas. Like right now I'm in my 3rd year and have to do my dissertation. I feel that, okay, there are a lot of proposals and a lot of things, but at the end of the day, we still don't know how is this gonna affect the step afterwards. I feel that there are a lot of communities in Brighton. There are a lot of communities, a lot of Arabs, a lot of Muslims, a lot of different communities and diverses, and they come along when we sit along with each other as an international student. I don't find anything. I found it really easy to communicate with people, and I'm even like, for me, this is the first time coming here. I wouldn't have the confidence about the city to come in here and talk in front of everyone right now. I feel so welcoming and I feel everything is really nice. But I feel that there's no direct communication between the goals and how do we address them at the end of the day. So thank you.
Well, thank you so much for standing up and sharing.
Yeah, thank you.
Hello, second time here. Oh, too loud. Second time here. Lovely talks. It's a great time. So connecting. Okay, I'm not a business. I'm just a data analyst. But I have the technical side, and I've been trying to connect to the business side. Now, a bit of a mystery to me. So I'm building tools as part of hackathons, which try to explain in non-technical terms what can be achieved with GPTs, all sorts of technologies. We have vision, text, etc., etc. So what I'm offering is you can either talk to me or maybe try one of my tools and see how can it be applicable to your business, to you personally, what's possible, what's not, from a technical standpoint. But I also want to see what business challenges are there to really fix. I don't want to be fixing artificial problems. That's the problem we have in engineering circles. Me and my colleague really like to talk about like technical optimizations, but not real problems. So please give us real problems to fix. Because we really like numbers, we really like computers, but yeah, people, nah, maybe not so much. So most common problem with the technical guys as we get lost in those things. So yeah, connecting those things, I think it's a great topic. Come find me. Name is Tom, approachable guy.
Bring Tom problems.
Thanks, Tom.
All right, we'll just do these very quickly and then we'll wrap up. But please do carry on the conversation afterwards.
I'll keep it short for 30 seconds in that case. Hi everyone, my name is Mohit, co-founder of Simplex Services based in SINC. First time here, really glad to have. And I would say, I think connecting your points over there. So we work with very mid and large companies over there. I think connecting the business is very important. We all know technology, but we all love numbers. I think if we pick up some business problem, call it as a proof of value, and then take it to the wider market over there, I think then it's a good success story for all of us. Glad to be here. Looking forward to more sessions. Thank you.
Lovely point. Thank you so much. We had one.
Hi, I'm Duncan. Knocking things over and breaking the place. I used to work in TV. I'm now working AI exclusively in the creative industries. And you're absolutely right about connecting. This group here, I want to thank all of these guys mostly for putting us all together. I have been able to grow my business quite quickly with contacts and stuff through using Grace and Rose and talking to these people and using their connections and being part of that, meeting people that have made a really, really big difference to how I'm trying to build my new business down here using AI. We're right at the cutting edge of what is creative. And the reason I could go for hours, and these guys have heard me talk about it for hours, and I'm not going to do that right now. But there have been major changes in the industry of creativity, which we haven't really touched on tonight, I don't think very much. Brighton is as much an artistic
place as it is a technological place. This week we've had announcements that Lionsgate are partnering with Runway to be able to put their libraries and their films online. We've also found that Runway are now going to be pushing up to, they've just started right now with a Runway 100 fund, which is going to give up to £5 million to AI innovated films and ideas and concepts. This is on the table right now. They do a 14-day turnaround. You put your picture in and you can get anything up to £1 million per movie. This is big business in the area. This is something that could be a game changer. I have really been able to push myself forward, the creativity, our ideas for studios and other things that we want to go forward on that will be shared with you all in the future. But I really want to suggest and urge you all to keep coming to these meetings, because without it, I couldn't have been standing here tonight saying we're about to take some of that funding from those people, or at least apply for it and be in a position to do so. This has been fundamental to that. So thank you. And thank you, you guys.
Thank you so much. We didn't pay him, I promise.
Yes, they did.
Right. So, guys, thank you so much for coming this evening. Oh, is it quick? Oh, go on then. Go on, go on. I like this.
It came after Richard's Brighton Dynamic event I went to a couple of weeks ago, and it percolated with me. My name's Matt. And I thought we got an amazing artist open house set up in Brighton, where people walk in and out of each other's homes, and we see what amazing work they do. Could we do a business version of that, where we could walk in and out of each other's businesses over a period of time, get to know each other away from these kind of events, when a bit more time could be spent and we could create amazing stuff together?
Love it. That's a brilliant idea.
20 seconds well spent. Thank you.
Excellent. That is it. So go, mingle, collaborate, have some good conversations, bring some problems to Tom. We've got some more events coming up. These are the Silicon Brighton ones. The next Brighton AI is in November up at Sussex University. So please join us there. Thank you so much.